I'm the manager of the education programming here. I don't usually give tours, so this is kind of a treat for me. I started out as an educator, so that's where I did start giving out tours and teaching programs. But then I graduated to the office where I book the programming and do the teaching and everything from kind of afar. So this is kind of a treat for me to be able to do it today with you all.
Thank you.
I think, Janet, you're going to start out in this area. Maybe give that group a bit to like move. So if you're coming with me, why don't we move on this way and we'll get away from all the noise and we'll start a little bit further down. I like to do this tour is basically we're going to take our time, we're going to walk around. I do a little bit of the history, a little bit of the artworks you're going to see, a little bit about the architecture. So we're going to take a leisurely walk around, get to know the place. If you have any questions, I'm going to do my best to answer them. Some fun facts that hopefully you'll find fun too, that I find fun. And just, hopefully you'll enjoy your time here. And is anybody coming here for the first time today? Oh, good. So there's a lot of first-time visitors. Hopefully you have a great time and you'll come back and visit us again. So welcome to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. This is an Episcopal cathedral, but it was built with the intention that everybody is welcome here. So you're going to get that repeated and kind of thrown at you the entire time that we're here. And the good thing about having a grown-up group is so nobody gets really lost because this is a big loop. So if people take their time, they'll catch up to us too. It's a little bit like herding cats. So they'll find us at some point and they can latch on to the other group too. So it'll be fine. They're okay. So why I like to start right in the middle here is this area that we're standing in. And then that space over there and the space right here that we just walked through, right? So I always like to ask my students, like, what are some of the things that you notice that are different? And what they always point out is that the light is very different over there and the light over in this area too. And that's because that area right there was built first and by different architects. So that where you're looking behind me was done in this Romanesque style, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's inspired by Roman architecture, more Byzantine. You'll see that the arches there are very rounded and like the walls are very thick. And because they're so thick, that's where most of the support comes into holding up the building. And then because, again, they're so thick, the light coming in from those stained glass windows is supported by artificial light too. It's not natural light coming in through those windows, which was a fun thing to find out, quite a bit of ways that I was working here. So I didn't know that too. And then I was like, oh, it's nighttime and there's still light coming through that beautiful stained glass window of Jesus. So, well, something's not quite right here. But because and then we're gonna get closer up, so you see those pillars there, they're very, very thick. So that's another feature of this architectural style. The architects that were involved in that building, they're called Hines and Lafarge. They won the contract to build this cathedral in 1892. But along the way, because you never build a place like this in just kind of a short amount of time, one of them passed away and they dissolved their contract. So they brought in a different architect. His name is Ralph Adams Cram. And he was from Boston, and he was very well known for building in this Gothic style that you see right around here. So the Gothic period, I always ask my middle school students because that's right when they're studying the Middle Ages, but I'm not going to test you right now. It's from about the 500s to the 1500s, that 1,000-year period. This cathedral was built in the 1800s, so it's a little bit out of that kind of era. So it's a Gothic revival. It's not exactly the Gothic period, but it's just kind of reviving that. It's neo-Gothic, but it's echoing the architectural features of that time. So you'll see these columns, the way they look like they're broken up into little kind of columns. They're called piers. You'll see that everything is kind of going up. So the point of Gothic architecture is to draw your eye up. It's light and height is basically the main, nice little rhyming couplet there to get you to remember its key facets. So all the walls here are very, very thin, and that's why the light coming in from this area, and if you look behind you, the rose window, I'm going to come stand over here so you can look at it and I will talk with your backs. Everything here is coming through it is natural light. The pillars are piers and they're more elegant rather than the big monoliths over at that end. And the arches are more pointed, so they're called vaulted arches, so they're very pointed and they come to like a point there. So because they're like this, kind of the support, it goes out rather than down that way. And because they're so thin, they need an extra bit of support to keep them up. So they have buttresses. I'm sure you've all heard that term before, like in medieval cathedrals in Europe, the flying buttresses. Those are basically bridges that are out, like up butting the cathedrals to keep them up. So we have them on the inside here, like you see that kind of balcony there. So these two school groups actually are doing a vertical tour. So maybe you'll come back and do that next time, where they get to climb every level of the cathedral all the way up to the roof. So they'll be going to this level, to that buttress there, to the rosette up there, and then ending up on the roof there. So they'll get to see what's actually keeping up the bones of the cathedral. So that's what's there, the support is coming in architecturally on this end of the cathedral. And if you look at the rose window, you'll see like a big part of the wall is missing, because you need to take out that much wall to basically to put that much glass in. But it's a lot of geometry and mathematics that's happening here, and has to be very precise. And this also kind of goes into the name of the place. So St. John is very closely associated with the book of Revelations. And something that comes up in that book is the number 7, which is a very sacred number, not only in Christianity, but in a lot of religions too. So some say 7 it's because it's 4, the 4 elements, and 3, the Holy Trinity.
Affection.
That's one explanation, but there's also like, I like to ask my students, like, can you think of 7 and other examples? And they'll say the 7 days of the week, or the 7 deadly sins. One of my favorites that I like to bring up is the 7 dwarves. You know, that there's all sorts of 7s in the world, in popular culture and everywhere. But there's 7s in especially religion and belief, and in sacred geometry as well. So I like to call them Easter eggs, even though that's probably not quite right. But you know what? The length of the cathedral is 601 feet. So the numbers 6 and 1 add up to 7, which I think, like, that's kind of whimsical. That's a little bit of an Easter egg there. You'd guess like 700 feet or, you know, something like that. The height of the cathedral is 124 feet. So again, those numbers add up to 7. These little bays, we're going to go to a couple of them, these little alcoves, there's 7 of them on each side. We have 7 chapels in the back behind the altar. We're going to go to a couple of those too. And there, if you look again at the rose window, there are 10,007 pieces of glass in there. Allegedly, I have not counted. But just to give you again a bit of like perspective on the size of this place, if you look at that figure of Jesus in the middle, it's 5'7". So if you look at me, I'm 5'5", so it's 2 inches taller than I am, and I'm wearing flats today, so it is taller than I am. So it doesn't look that big right now from where you're standing, right? But up close, it's pretty big. So, and if the whole circumference of that glass, as I was saying, is again 124 feet. So if you took that glass out and spread it out, it would be the width from that wall to that wall, which is again 124 feet. So again, lots of precise math happening, and I'm gonna admit it, I kind of, you know, learned this as I was working here and kind of memorized it, because I'm an art student and math is not my strong concept. So all this geometry is very, very basic for me. So when we teach geometry, it's I always taught it to the very, very young kids, like pre-K, like, yes, circle, square. So, but there's a lot of complex math happening that it was very interesting. We have engineering students who come here and love to study it, but it's just a little bit beyond my facts right there. So we're going to talk a little bit about why this place is a place for community and a place for everybody, even though it is an Episcopal cathedral and it's, you know, Episcopalianism is under the banner of Christianity. But because it was open right around the time of Ellis Island too, it was a time of a lot of immigration to New York, and New York itself is a place that's very well known for all sorts of people coming in. So we're going to see examples of that, and one of my favorite ones is right in this bay here. So if you'll follow me, we're going to bays have a different theme to them. They're all they're all people based on a different human endeavor, which is just kind of like a fancy way of saying something people have brought into this world, which, well, again, is something for everybody, something for every part of the person in the community. Because even though this is a place of faith, of spiritual devotion and prayer, there's space for the human, the mortal too. And I like to point this out as an example because the theme of this bay is medicine, so it's science. So you'd think those are two kind of clashing ideas to be of spiritual and science, but here they are existing together in one place. And it goes further to show how every part of that belief can be represented in one window, basically. So if you look at the little circles in there, we have different representations of medicine and health, basically, as represented by the Bible. We have Jesus, laying of the hands, curing the deaf and the blind. We have Lazarus emerging from the cave. But if you look at the other circles, you'll see kind of figures from history and science and basically people from that we would have read about in textbooks being embodied in these windows. So if you look at, I like to point out, if you look, these two half circles on this, if you're looking at it from your angle, it's going to be on your right. The two figures there's one in a blue dress there, and one in a blue dress. It's Clara Barton and Florence Nightingale. So the two kind of premier women in medicine. So you've got female representation in the windows, which is always good to see as a woman myself. So I'm like, yay, we're in the windows, we're being represented too. If you look down at this little, I don't know if you can see it if I'm blocking it, but if you come this way, there's a little quarter circle right there, which is my favorite one personally. It's the scientist Louis Pasteur, and he is testing out vaccines on a sheep. And I just another example of how these windows are based on the medieval tradition of cathedrals, of storytelling and representation, and but they're kind of in the tradition of an American cathedral, because that's really the kind of point of this place, was to not only be a time capsule of world and American history, but really to embody an American place. Because you're not going to see a little sheep resigned to its fate in a medieval European cathedral, and you're not going to see, if you look in this kind of border there's a little green guy that my students like to call a zombie. It's not a zombie, it's a representation of Imhotep, the first kind of medical figure in history. Really special because it's called Guastavino tiling. Are you all New Yorkers? Do you live here or are you visiting?
No, Layla.
Oh.
Didn't tell you. They're all international.
Ukraine? Oh, I'm from Turkey, so we're all international, yeah.
Nasılsın?
Oh, Ian, that's amazing. There was somebody from Turkey visiting this morning too, just a guest too. So it's a very international day today. So, which again, so that goes into the idea that everybody has a place here. I'm Turkish Iranian, so this is not my religion at all. I didn't even grow up with it. But again, I love working here, and I wouldn't if I didn't feel comfortable and everything. So, and I'm in the education department, which is wonderful for me because that's what I grew up. That's what I majored in. That's what I taught. I've always taught in museums, and even though this is a church and it's a national landmark, it's still a little bit of everything for everybody. So, and if you let me, I would talk for 3 hours about this place, but we have limited time anyway. So Guastavino tiling is very special to New York because it came through an immigrant, Rafael Guastavino, who came through Italy and Spain, and he brought this special tile with him. It's terracotta and brick, and it's very thin and it's very strong. It's fireproof as well. So it's about this thick, and it's built in a way that's crisscross. That's why it's so strong. So you'll see it in the roof if you do a little bit of a kind of touring around. You'll even see it if you're in a car and going through some underpasses. It'll be on the underside of bridges. It's at Grand Central Station. If you go to the Bronx Zoo, it'll be there. It's because it's so strong. That's what's keeping our roof up. So you can't really see it, but that's what's keeping these arches up too. It's the same material there. That's just got a glaze over it, so it matches the rest of the cathedral there. But it's really this color, this terracotta kind of brick color, and it's so strong that probably have noticed that New York has a lot of scaffolding everywhere. That's what they do for building and repair and renovations. But this is so strong that they started from the corners, and it's self-supporting. So they just as they built it, the workers, they could just stand on it and keep building until they got to the middle. So this was supposed to be a temporary support while they built the rest of it. And it went up in about 15 weeks. So that's how fast this was and how like easy to work with basically, because I don't know any construction work that could be done in 15 weeks. My sister's getting her apartment renovated and they said it would be done in 8 months. It's been over a year now. I haven't seen her. And she lives in the same building as me. So right now we are apart and we're feeling like the codependency is like trying right now as Middle Eastern Turkish sisters. We're just like, we have to FaceTime every day. I literally just did before you all got here. But anyway, back on the subject, it was supposed to be temporary until like the bell tower came, but because of all the interruptions and like world wars and lack of funding and everything, 100 years passed and now this is a landmark, so they can't really do anything with it. And it just recently went through like this big restoration and cleaning, and so it's this beautiful dome now, and you can't really see, but there's netting underneath it too, keeping it together. So within the original plans, you know how churches are, their actual shape, they're shaped like a cross, right? To go with the human body. You have the, above the altar, you can see it, you have the cross there with Jesus. So right where we're standing, this would be the main body of it, and then the arms would go out this way through the transepts. So in the original plan, they had that to go out there, but on this side, we have a building that's actually older than this building now, so they can't really extend it. So in a way, this building will never be finished because now it's all got all the landmark statuses to it that they can't add anything to it. So we have just, it's basically just an oval with this big dome, so it's kind of unique in that way as well. But as I was saying, you know, this is a church, it has services. We have a daily Eucharist every day at 12:15. There are services on Sundays in the morning and an evensong in the afternoon, which is an Episcopal tradition with music and a choir. But it's a lot of other, it's used for a lot of other reasons too. It's a performance space, it's a museum, it's an art gallery. And one of my favorite aspects of it is these, if you'll notice these little creatures, right, like that, you'll see them on like little corners like that. So they're by the artist Tom Modernist. He's very well known for public art. So if, I guess you're traveling by bus, but if you ever happen to go by 14th Street Station, his figures are in there in the subway too, like kind of like these creatures coming out. He had an exhibit here with a bunch of other artists called The Value of Food, and after the exhibit was over, he donated the pieces to the cathedral. So now they're just kind of like our little guys that keep an eye out on us. And the point of that exhibit, The Value of Food, was to draw attention to like food inequality in the world, basically. That's why. And his theme was kind of retelling the story of the loaves and the fishes from the Bible. That's why you'll see some of the figures are skinny, some of them are fat. You'll see skeleton fish and kind of fleshy fish. And one of my colleagues' students actually called them modern gargoyles, like you'll see on like cathedrals in Europe. And I thought that was such a beautiful description. So I don't know the student's name, but I credit them by saying it was a student who came up with it. But I think that's beautiful, so I call it that too, because we don't have our own gargoyles. That's the one thing that's missing here. So, but we have these guys that keep an eye out on us and give us their protection. But other things you may have noticed are these tapestries. So these are the Barberini tapestries. They're from the 1700s, and they were commissioned by one of the Pope Urbans, I believe the 8th, his nephew. So they're not the originals. They're one from the house that made the originals. And we have the full set. There was 10 of them. There was a fire here in 2015 where they were very, very badly damaged. But we have a textile conservation lab that's actually off of that building that is of that side, as I mentioned. That's called the Town Building. It was originally used as a boys' orphanage back in the 1800s, but now it's our textile conservation lab, and museums and collectors from all over the world send their materials to them to kind of restore and basically save. So these are the restored versions of the tapestries that we have. And then the two walls, you'll see some artwork. Again, the space was used as a memorial most recently for the philanthropist Agnes Gunn, and she was a big supporter of art in schools. So these are just a few of the artworks from her students. just from her students and from the programs she supported. So they had them up for her memorial. So what happened? They didn't use it for the longest time, but now they're starting to use it more. They would just do it out in the nave, in the main area. So all these little rooms, these chapels, have a different theme to them, and they're all dedicated to a different immigrant group that is kind of common to New York, again, giving space to the different communities of New York as well as the different communities that worship underneath the Episcopal banner. So this one, baptism, since they represent a new beginning, new life, new starts, is dedicated to the Dutch, because New York, before it was New York, was New Amsterdam. So that's why you'll see like all the colors are a lot of blues and oranges. That's dedicated to the Netherlands. Like a lot of the New York state flag is a lot of blue and orange. Something my students pointed out to me, because I know nothing about sports, is a lot of the sports teams are blue and orange too. So I was like, an excellent example. And we got up here are 16 of the founding Dutch families of New York, which unfortunately I can't identify most of them, except for that one, because of his pig leg, like a pirate, is Peter Stuyvesant. And if you're going around in a bus, you're going to notice a lot of places named after him. So you'll see Stuyvesant Street, school, buildings everywhere. So he kind of really put his stamp here. And around this space, you'll see it's the life of John the Baptist. So the Bible has a lot of Johns, and that's something I learned working here. This is not the Saint John that we're named after, but something fun that was, you know, kind of intrinsic to my life again. So Saint John the Divine was, he in his later years was purported to live on the island of Patmos near Greece. And since my family is Turkish and they traveled there like last year while I was here, and I have a picture of my mom, she got me a rosary from there. So now I've got this all sorts of connections going out from there. So it's nice to make these connections even though you don't originally start out knowing anything about a place like this. But right here is the baptistry. Over there is the columbarium, where we have these niches where people can, you know, reserve one for their ashes. I'm not going to bring all of us through there just in case there's anybody there for worship or prayer, but if you want to stick your heads in and take a peek, you're more than welcome to. The theme of that one is Scandinavian, so it's St. Ansgar's.
Cathedrals, masterpiece. Masterpiece.